Hey boys, and welcome to the Week 6 edition of Commissioner on a Couch. This week's hat is in honor of the Steelers' first victory of the season, gold, black, and yellow. So I hope you all got plenty of turkey and pumpkin pie over the long weekend, and I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. This may be the first time in league history that we haven't seen a trade yet at this time of the year. So who's going to be the first to pop that cherry, guys? Come on. Someone has to make a trade sooner or later. Not everyone's team is perfect. So now let's get right into the no-huddle. As a tribute to the two paltry 60-point performers from this past week, the no-huddle will focus on historical point stats from over the years. So I'm going to start off with the most points scored in a single week this season, and that honor goes to Val Venus with 159.92 points. The most points scored in a single week all time actually happened last season, and that was the All Blacks with 181 points. The most points scored this season in total goes to Caught Red Hernandez with 763.32 points. That's an average of 127.22 points a week. The most points scored in a single season all time goes to the All Blacks with 2,129 points, which averages out to 133.06 points a week. The least points scored in a single week this season goes to My Password is Taco, which happened this past week with 61.68 points. The least points scored in a single week all time goes to the Big Tibowski, which happened last season, scoring 49 points. I think it's the only sub-50 point performance in league history. The least points scored this season in total goes to the Walking Dead, who are averaging 95.05 points a week. And the least points scored in a season all time goes to the Big Tibowski with 1,250 points, or an average of 96.16 points a week. It's important to note that this year we're using fractional points for the first time, so that means that the most and least points scored from previous seasons would both be higher if they were adjusted to reflect our current settings. Also, the Walking Dead is currently on pace to supplant the Big Tibowski for least points scored in a season. Not the best honor, for sure. Okay, so now let's get into the weekly recap. After 6 weeks, it's now very evident that the Jerome Bettis Conference is a lot stronger than the Franco Harris Conference. So here's a quick recap of last week's matchups. Chalupa Batmans versus My Password is Taco. It was a very, very tough week for My Password is Taco, who only managed to put up 61 points. That's half of what they put up the week before and the lowest total of the season. With 20.7 points, Brandon Marshall was the only player on Team Taco to put up more than 10 points. So with the loss, Taco now slips to 3-3 and 7th overall, while the Chalupas move to 4-2 with a 4th consecutive victory. Jupe Stars versus Bono's Football. Things are going from bad to worse for the Jupe Stars, who can't seem to get consistency from anyone on the roster besides Aaron Rodgers. Free agent tight end Sean McGrath put up 0 points while replacing Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez, and the Jupe Stars lost another one to fall to 1-5 on the season. They now sit in last place for the first time this year. Meanwhile, Bono's Football continues to chug along, moving to 3-3, despite the season-ending injury to stud wide receiver Julio Jones. If Reggie Bush can stay healthy and Le'Veon Bell can emerge as a solid RB2 option, this Bow squad will be tough to beat for sure. Caught Red Hernandez versus the All Blacks. Once again, the game of the week was the highest scoring matchup of the week, and it did not disappoint. Despite early exits by DeMarco Murray and Jimmy Graham, who didn't put up any points before leaving the game, Hernandez managed to hold on for a 125.56 to 110.92 victory against last year's champion to remain first overall in the league. It looked like the All Blacks were going to pull off the upset, needing only about 25 points on Monday night between Trent Richardson, Kobe Fleener, and Vincent Brown to get the win. But subpar performances by all three of those players cost the All Blacks a win and dropped them to 6 overall. Walking Dead versus Points on Points. As I predicted last week, the Walking Dead squeaked by Points on Points for their second victory this season and second win on the road on the backs of their running backs, Jamal Charles, Eddie Lacy, and Stephen Ridley, who combined for over 60 points. Both teams, unfortunately, got horrible production from their wide receivers. And like I said he would, Peyton Manning put up a pedestrian 16 points rather than his usual 30 or 35. and points on points now drops to 3-3 on the season. Val Venus versus the Raffy Bombs. Val Venus stays atop the Franco-Harris Conference with an easy win over the Raffy Bombs, who didn't get much help from Geno Smith during Matt Ryan's bye week. I still think Raffy is one of the deepest and most lethal teams in the league, but bad roster decisions seem to be the Achilles heel of this team each and every week. No one could have predicted the injury to James Jones, but leaving Vincent Jackson and Reggie Wayne on the bench for Aishan Jeffrey, come on, man. You know better than that. The Raffy Bombs now fall to 8 overall with a 2-4 record, so that's a big win for Val Venus. Now let's take a look ahead at this upcoming week's matchups. In case you missed it, I went 5-0 with my predictions last week, so that brings my season total to 9-6. I think I may be getting the hang of this stuff, so let's take a look at these matchups. The first matchup is Caught Red Hernandez versus Points on Points. This matchup could have easily been the game of the week as it pits two of the league's highest scoring teams against each other. Unfortunately, Hernandez will have to do without one of his top performers in Jimmy Graham, as well as consistent point producer Darren Sproles, both of whom are on bye this week. Hernandez is also without DeMarco Murray, who suffered an injury last week, meaning some unfamiliar faces will be inserted into his lineup. Meanwhile, Points on Points has the luxury of having Peyton Manning playing against his former team, which is sure to spur another stellar performance, meaning Julius Thomas and Eric Decker are going to see plenty of action. He also has Ray Rice and Torrey Smith playing against the division rival Steelers, a team which they have seen quite a bit of success against in the past. So my verdict here is Points on Points should take this one. Jube Stars versus the All Blacks. The Jube Stars have looked pretty bad the past couple of weeks, but I think they're due for a W here. Tony Gonzalez is back and is now Matt Ryan's #1 option in the passing game because of injuries to Roddy White and Julio Jones. It can't be argued that Doug Martin has been a disappointment so far this season, but on the other hand, Danny Woodhead has been a rather pleasant surprise. With the Chargers playing Jacksonville this weekend, he figures to pile up the fantasy points. Moving on to the All Blacks, while I believe that they have the better overall roster, on this particular week, I think some tough running back matchups will be too much for them to overcome. It should be a close one, but I'm going with the Jube Stars. Walking Des versus the Raffy Bombs. Even though Larry Fitz will probably have a tough day against the Seahawks past I think the Walking Des is capable of pulling off a third straight win this week against the Raffy Bombs. The Bombs have a very good roster. Unfortunately, this had led to some problems for manager Zach Brisebois, who can't seem to find a winning combination on a weekly basis. To have a chance to win against Dez this week, I think Matt Ryan, Vincent Jackson, and Reggie Wayne all need to be in the lineup for the Raffy Bombs. As for Dez, the guy's going with my boy Heath Miller at tight end. Bold prediction here, Heath is going to put up 2 TDs, 54 yards, and more importantly, a win for the Walking Deads. Val Venus versus my password is Taco. Perhaps the least hyped and most under-the-radar matchup of the week and even the season. This one is actually more important than people realize. At the moment, only one win separates these two teams, but that also means the difference between leading the division and being on the wrong end of the playoff picture. Taco just got some very bad news, losing corn on the cob for the entire season. However, he did pick up Harry Douglas, who is all of a sudden the #1 receiver for the Falcons. Still, I don't see Val Venus losing this matchup, even with Drew Brees on a bye week. Venus has not one but 2 solid backup options to fill the hole and should pick up another win this week to continue leading the Franco-Harris Conference. Game of the week. The game of the week this week is the Chalupa Batmans versus Bono's Football. These are currently the 2 hottest teams in the league, with the Chalupa Batmans piling up 4 consecutive wins, while Bono's Football has piled up 3 consecutive wins. So one of those is going to have to come to an end this weekend. Going down both rosters, these 2 teams actually seem pretty evenly matched. Both are led by versatile running quarterbacks. Bo takes the edge at wide receiver, while the Chalupas have the edge at running back. If Gronk is finally ready for game action, it seems likely that both squads will go with a 2 tight end look, which is a very rare feat in our league. The projections have the Chalupas as slight favorites in this one, and in this particular case, I have to agree with the projection. Some of Bo's most important players have matchups against tough opponents this week, so I don't think they will be able to stretch the winning streak to 4 games. Chalupa Batmans should get the win here, but by a very, very slight margin. It's going to be a close one. So that's the way I see it all shaping up for this week, boys. Keep sporting that pink for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and have a good one. That's it.